Jon Mendez here with the latest in our how-tos. This one's about winterisation. Whether you're going to leave your boat in the water and use it, or just leave it in the water for the winter months and not really use it, or whether you're going to take it out and put it on the side. There's some sensible things that we can do to make sure that when we come to reuse it again, it's still in good working condition and hasn't deteriorated. Although we've got a bright sunny day, the autumn chill as we move towards winter is already in the air. One needs to think about the exterior. First thing will be to make sure that it's clean, and that just doesn't mean a little bit clean, but all the corners, all the crevices, all the little bits and pieces. Get it properly clean, get it nicely salted, and then consider, does it need another coat of wax? This one's looking really smart at the moment, but we do need to make sure that the exterior is maintained with a wax level so that we're not getting that aggressive winter weather into the gel. The covers themselves, they might well need reproofing, or at least making sure they're beautifully zipped up and there's no gaps for the winter weather to work its way into. Worth checking them all and possibly reproofing both on the interior and the exterior. This owner's sensibly added extra line, so we've not only got 4.5 springs, but we've also got a short little line keeping the boat alongside the pontoon to make sure that despite what the winds do, the boat's going to be here when you return. They've also added in, rather than just having the ropes tied to the cleats, they've added in some really clever extra bits of tubing to stop the ropes chafing. It means that you don't get so much damage and allows a little bit of elasticity. Very sensible. Moving into the cockpit area, they very sensibly removed the cushions. They've stored those down below where they've got a dehumidifier running. They've ensured that the teak in the cockpit has been cleaned so that the dirt and grime that's accumulated throughout the summer months when the boat's been in heavy use has not been ground into the teak. They've also sensibly had a cover made for the helm, protects the instrumentation, stops any further sun damage or any water leaks. The foredeck cushions, which normally live outside for sunbathing, have been brought inside. They were stood vertically for a while to drain any damp and moisture out, and now they're stored in here where it's much drier and they're protected from the worst of the elements. Down below, the humidity within the boat is being controlled using a dehumidifier, which is set on permanent drain with the drain going in the sink. They've also added a couple of the little interior dehumidifier little tablet jobs. They work really well if your electric ever goes off. The water system on the boat needs to be drained if it's being taken ashore, as the wind chill will make it freeze. If you're just leaving the boat in the water, I'd recommend you drain it down to a nice low level so that you're not getting any extra stale water in the system. And then every time you visit the boat over the winter months, open the water system so that the taps and everything can be exercised. And the same with the heads. What we need to do is pump it through, preferably with fresh water. If you've got a toilet fed system, then I suggest use a bucket of fresh water to flush through the loo. And if it's a manual system, a little bit of cooking oil in the toilet bowl itself, flush through. That lubricates all the seals and saves any problems later. One of the key things that makes boats go mouldy and horrible inside is lack of ventilation. So whilst it's lovely to keep the cold out, just a little bit of ventilation. I like to leave the heads window open and then the bathroom door open. That allows the air to circulate, but it's not bringing in too much moisture. It just makes the boat feel much fresher. In the cabins, removing as much of the bedding and soft furnishing is really sensible. You can either put it in vacuum bags and seal them, which greatly reduces the chance of damp and mildew, or if you don't have that option, perhaps consider taking it home where it can be stored in the warm and dry. If you have a heating system with a programmable timer, it's good practice to allow it to come on just once a week. It would be good just to move the air around the boat. It doesn't have to be for long, half an hour, and that will greatly improve the freshness and the humidity levels. Having done the interior of the boat, one needs to have a look through the engine bay. Now ideally we want to service the boat before the end of the season so that the engines are sitting with nice fresh clean oil in them, not last year's dirty horrible oil. Much better for their longevity. Additionally, we want to think about, are we going to use it over the winter or not? If we're not, then some sensible steps might be to remove the impellers, slacken off the belts, release the pressure in the seawater cooling system, Probably put some antifreeze in there as well, so that we're not going to have any issues with any freezing if the water gets really cold. If we're in the water, that's not such a consideration. If we're out on the side, the wind chill can be really dramatic. Some people even go as far as to put a nice bit of old duvet around the engine to make sure that it stays nice and warm. However, make a really big note at the helm so that you don't start the engines with a duvet on them. That's not a good way. So let's just look through those little points. We might well have to drain the calorifier. We might well do a double check on the engine room fire extinguisher system. We might additionally be checking all the bilges and having a really good clean at this time of the year, so if any leaks over the winter appear, we are immediately aware of them. Tube heaters are really good in the engine room, and then we might also be carefully looking at the fuel levels and the fuel filters. Fuel filters should probably be best if we change them now. Could do it at the start of next season, but if we change them and then run up the engines for a brief period before we winterise, then we'll know if we've got any fuel issues before we start again. Tanks. Now, we always used to say with a diesel boat, leave your tanks full, and that's true if you can get decent marine diesel with not a lot of biodiesel in it. If you're only able to get a mix, then I'd probably be leaving my tanks much emptier, less chance for the fuel to go off, because when you put a load of new stuff in at the beginning of next season, that will dilute whatever's been going on in there. So good quality diesel, top them up. Petrol, generally leave a petrol boat as empty as I possibly can. Modern petrol deteriorates quite quickly over a 3-month period, and it will make the boat much harder to start and not so well to run. So you've got to be very careful. Any outboard engines that we take out of the water for our winter, or I should perhaps say outboard engine boats, then we need to either winterise that engine. Most of them drain when you put the lake fully down, most of the seawater drains out, but I'd certainly be putting some antifreeze through that system by flushing it with some muffs to make sure no freezing happened over winter. Cracked heads on engines is not good. Lastly, Seacocks. It's best practice to leave your Seacocks closed at all times. I think especially if you're leaving the boat over a winter period. They sink pretty quickly if there's a hole in it. Keep the Seacocks closed, keep some wood bungs handy just in case. Any tenders on your boat? Worth thinking about. Could I collapse it and store it rather than leave it exposed to the elements? And that little engine's going to get tremendous wind chill and potentially huge damage. I'd be storing that much safer inside, and it's out of the way of prying eyes and theft. With any refrigeration, strongly recommend that you empty it, give it a good clean, prop it open so that it's not going to shut and go smelly and horrible, leave it turned off, take any food home. So if I'm going ashore for the winter, my list of tasks is pretty much the same. I probably want to try and reduce any damp and humidity inside and make sure I've done everything to store that correctly. Lastly, if you put a cover over your boat, do not ever tie it to the props that are holding your boat up. If anything goes wrong, those props are going to come out, the cover will sail away and your boat will fall on the floor. Just be careful with how you make sure your covers are attached. Last thing I think I'd be thinking about is check my insurance. Some policies have some naughty little clauses in there which can really catch you out when things go wrong. So are you insured to be in the water? Are you insured in the area that you're currently moored in? And do you know if your insurance company allows heaters or not, or dehumidifiers, or if your Seacocks have to be open or shut? Just have a look at that small print. Make sure that when you get back to the boat, all's well and you can carry on enjoying it.